We'll be seeing you on that foreign show. We'll be seeing you. We'll be seeing you every Friday here at TFS. That foreign show. We'll be seeing you on that foreign show. We'll be seeing you. We'll be seeing you every Friday here at TFS. That foreign show. We'll be seeing you on that foreign show. We'll be seeing you. We'll be seeing you every Friday here at TFS.
ADR Networks presenta.
This is Celestine Angel.
And I'm Isaac Crouch.
And this is...
Foreign Show!
On the foreign show.
Yes, y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
Hey,
people of all
hey.
ages.
Here we are on that foreign show on ADR Networks. My name is Celestine Angel.
My name is Isaac Rakesh.
And we have here with us Carey James.
Yeah, give it up.
Hello.
One time. Thank you for
Good
joining
to
us.
See you all at the Foreign Show.
That foreign show.
Yeah, that foreign
Yes.
show.
All right, so
So-
we got a really interesting show for you guys today. All right, we're gonna touch on some topics that are personally very interesting to me. All right, but let's do it step by step. First things first. What are we gonna do?
So, like Carey here, maybe he can explain to us what he does, because that's what we find really interesting.
All right.
Yes.
Well, Carey,
Okay, so yeah,
tell us, man. Tell us. Okay, I mean, you've shared some things with me already, but yeah, tell the people.
Great. Yeah. So brief intro. Currently at this stage, and we could dive into how this kind of all took place to get to here. But currently, I work in flow research consulting, so helping people to get more access to flow states, and helping people that require higher levels of performance and cognitive abilities, helping them to reach more flow, just overall better neurocognitive health.
So, like, what kind of people would require this higher flow states?
Yeah, so historically in the past, it's been, you look at like extreme athletes, people that are, surfing 100-foot waves, or skydivers even, just like extreme athletes have been the ones that have been the biggest, philosophers of flow up until now, or even people in the religious realm.
Can
But-
you explain flow a little bit first before we move on?
Yes, because
Yeah.
when you say flow state, right? I'm thinking Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee being in that flow state, and another thing I'm thinking of like thermodynamics, right? When fluid is in flow state, things are constant. I think you mean something like that, right?
Yeah, and flow it's defined in a number of different ways, but for the purposes of the work that I typically do, it's defined as an optimal state of cognitive performance.
Okay.
So it's a symphony of neurotransmitters are kicking off all at the same time. You have your dopamine, your serotonin, your norepinephrine or adrenaline kicking off, and when you're able to make all of these neurotransmitters, put into your system, into your brain at the same time, you're able to reach this state, which is often described as being in the zone. It's experienced by the average everyday person of being in the zone. And
So would it be something like you're performing at your best? I mean, you're a peak performance specialist, so the being in the flow, being in the zone is your best state. Is that right?
exactly, yeah, by definition, the state of the brain is literally it's at the peak of your abilities.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you give us some idea of like what would you guide them to like to reach these states?
Yeah, to reach these states, I mean, you guys being artists, I know you're in the music world. You've experienced
Oh yes,
flow.
give us the tips for
Yeah.
artists.
and human beings, we're flow beings. Like we often, a lot of people, they think, oh, like this state of flow that you see with the jazz musician on stage, that's just reserved for musicians or for these crazy athletes. But humans, we've evolved the capacity to get into flow over many hundreds of thousands of years. Back in our evolutionary environment, we would experience full days in flow, where maybe we're building a house with our hands, or maybe we're hunting, or maybe we're gathering or creating something. So back then it was necessary. It was an evolutionary tactic to get into flow on a daily basis.
Right.
In our modern environment, we've been removed from that in a lot of ways. Like we have constant distractions, we have constant different stimuli that's hijacking our dopamine or our pleasure center of the brain. So yeah, it's something that everybody can access. But a lot of the time, the people that I work with these days, it's knowledge workers, it's CEOs, executives, people that are required to just exhibit, exceptional levels of mental performance.
Right. So like, what would be like a tip you give, or like what would be like steps that you give? Or is this like secrets? Like you're not going to say it?
Locking the key. No, there's many. Actually, I mean, there's over, there's 18 different flow triggers that are known to science. We're coming out with more every year. Wow. But yeah, I'll just give a quick few. For example, if you're, at home during the day and you're just trying to get something done and you want to utilize a flow state, of course, distraction management is going to be your biggest piece. It's getting rid of your phone and being able to understand your internal and external distractions. Clean environment, which is, it's crazy. It's like, oh, obviously, you would think this, but a lot of people, they go and they try to do work and their place is a mess. Right. They're thinking about a million different things. So, and it's understanding your own internal distractions, where you're like, every time, like a flow state is always like the precursor to a flow state is struggle. And we teach this with clients that we work with. It's like there's a cycle to it.
Right, that's so interesting.
That's really interesting.
It's a wave, like so you actually look forward to the struggle because something is about to be birthed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's usually only like 10, 15 minutes of struggle before you get into that other side where it feels pleasurable, like it's a rich sensory experience. Yeah. But that 15 minutes is vital. Like you have to understand that, oh, this is going to not be fun for a couple of minutes. It's going to hurt. And then once you get to the other side of that, then it's gold. You can spend several hours in a flow state. So just one off the back is distraction management. Another one that is often grossly overlooked is optimizing your machine. So people think that, to be an incredible artist or to be an incredible, mental performer, you have to just work all the time and you have to be obsessed with the work. Right. But it's just as vital to take efficient breaks. Right. So for example, we teach a lot of people to do, to get involved in cold therapy or saunas or taking a walk in nature. These are all, things that we call them active recovery. And without active recovery. What was the first one? Cold therapy? Cold therapy. That's my personal favorite. So ice plunges, cold baths.
Right. Like the Russians do, right? Like
the Russians.
There's a lot of science behind this. Yeah, and it's incredible because we've seen people that have maybe they're a writer. The founder of my program, his name is Stephen Kotler, and he's a 6-time New York Times best-selling author. He wrote a best-selling book in less than 2 weeks because he was in a continuous state of flow.
That is amazing. Wow.
Yeah, and the reason being is because he's well recovered. We aren't machines. We are animals. We are living beings, and we need to, we perform at a high pace. Then we need to recover at a high pace as well. It's just a cycle.
So would you say
I absolutely aligned with what you're saying? It's so like it resonates a lot.
Artists need to chill.
Yeah.
They need to relax sometimes. But it's also worth noting that a lot of times people, they see recovery or as relaxation as having a beer on the beach or going out and watching Netflix for 10 hours straight. That's not active recovery. You're not replenishing your neurotransmitters.
So what is active recovery?
That is you're going out doing like ice baths, doing saunas, doing yoga, going and being exposed to nature, getting sunlight exposure to direct sunlight exposure is helpful sometimes. It just depends on the person. Everybody has their own recovery protocol, but it's funny because you take a CEO that works 70 hours a week running a multi-billion-dollar company, and you're like, the first thing you tell them is like, oh, you want to be more efficient, you want to be more productive, quit doing so much.
Right.
You know,
Then
just like go to the sauna, go get a massage, man, like now. You know.
And
So-
do you get a lot of angry
clients?
when you tell them stuff like that? They be, you know, like, because I guess because it kind of taps into a fundamental philosophy that I'm assuming a lot of these people have, you know, and that is like what you said. Let's try and work harder, you know. Let's try and do more.
Hustle.
Let's hustle more, you know.
Yeah.
And it's Mondays, you know. It's Monday today, and we got till Friday. Let's get this done, and things like that. And I mean, that has its place as well, I'm sure. But what you're describing is something super refreshing, actually, to be honest. I mean, like, and I'm sure the people will be interested in this also. Like, you're talking in a sense about resting properly, right?
Resting properly and intentional resting rather than
Intentional.
just like, you know, going off smoking a joint and calling it a day,
Right.
which is not bad. There's a place for that. But when you're looking for, you know, more mental capacity, more efficiency in the work that you do, then it's you have to be intentional with recovery. Like you have to schedule it into your calendar. But there's two sides to that. You know, of course there's angry clients that come. It's like, oh, you're telling me to take a break.
Right.
But it's the concept is like there's certain resources you have available to accomplish things. One is time, and one is energy, right? So time is finite. You cannot get more time. Like you can only work 70 to 80 hours a week max before you just die or burn out. And we see that a lot. A lot of the clients I work with are completely burned out. And then energy, you can leverage in different ways. For example, taking 1 hour where you're not in flow and you're distracted, you're playing with your phone, you're answering emails every 5 minutes. That's not highly leveraged energy. But you can optimize for a flow state, and then in 1 hour you can get 8 hours of work done that most people would be spending 8 hours of time to do, right? And we have clients, like I've worked with people where it's insane. They'll go from spending a week on a project to being able to get it done in a day just because they optimize their flow states. Wow. And it's bizarre to see, but energy is you can. When you start to leverage your systems, start to leverage your energy, you start to see outside of the world of time, because then you start to maybe utilize other people that are available to you. Asking people, instead of the what, ask the who. Who can help me accomplish this? That kind of thing.
So things will not be so like 1 + 1 and so linear, but like you get more like creative expansion that way, right?
Yeah, and most people live in this time paradigm where it's like, okay, I got to maximize these hours, or this is all I have, and I just got to work and hustle. But as you see in Scandinavia, where they have 4-day work weeks as the norm, there's science to support this. When people work less and they work more efficiently, and they maximize their flow states, then they're able to do more than people working 6-7 days a week.
Yeah.
It's just higher quality versus quantity.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that. But like work 4 days, do your best in those 4 days, and then the rest of the week is yours. You recover and you at your peak performance, like what you do. Yeah.
Yes, really, really interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining us right now, we are talking with Carey, and we're talking about something really interesting. We're talking about peak performance. He's a peak performance specialist. He has worked many years, right? Several years. And I want to know what got you into this field. I mean, it sounds to me like you've tried and tested a lot of different things before coming to certain methods that kind of get you into the flow state, right? Like what? Tell the people a bit about your journey into this.
Yeah, so it's interesting being a foreigner here in Mexico. It's like a lot of people. There's a lot of different ways to get to where you are now. My journey actually started. I was working in entertainment in Hollywood at a brief time, working in film, TV. Was doing voice work. Yeah,
and the voiceover.
Yeah. So it was in a lot of bad movies. And,
bad movies.
Yeah.
What, have you seen you anywhere?
No, I mean there's an episode of Pretty Little Liars. That's the only one that anybody would know. But it was a fun chapter, that's for sure. But I found and I have mad respect for people that that work in dramatic acting in that space. I found for me, I wanted to go deeper within the behavioral aspects of what I was learning and studying. So I went from that, and I was working in film for a minute as well, behind the camera. and then transitioned over to psychology. I was like went back to school and got pretty obsessed in that for a while. So like applied psychology, neuroscience. That kind of
this
thing.
was in LA, right? Because you said that you lived there for quite some time.
Yeah, in Los Angeles. And it's funny the amount of people that work, especially filmmakers, directors, people like that, how obsessed with psychology they are, because they're writing these stories that they're existing within the minds of these fictional characters. They need to make sure that it's coming from a basis of reality.
Yes,
Right.
and also trying to touch the viewers in a kind of a meaningful way also, right? Like these directors and people who I think it's only natural that directors and producers of content become students of psychology, because they're kind of studying how people react to things as well. I mean,
Yes.
for
yes.
us as
They want to
well.
make meaningful, like the concepts of the movie and everything. They want it to have some significance, like for the individual, right? So the psychology will be for that reason. And
Yes, but it's very interesting because, like, on the other side of this whole thing, there's this stream of thought, which is kind of like, okay, yes, I mean, all this is good and everything, but why do we need to go so heavily and so deeply into these things? And speaking for myself, I mean, it's not something that is. I guess it's something that comes out of a kind of a necessity or almost like an outcome of studying yourself, right? And kind of testing yourself out with your life experiences, and the successes and the failures and these kind of swings. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes they're okay. But most of the times we want to just kind of understand what it is that we are searching for in life. What is it that we're trying to get to, and so being a student of psychology, I think it's a beautiful thing, and
that's why I think like it's not just the people who are doing film and all that, like trying to get into psychology for their art, but I think like everybody is like if you're gonna talk to them about flow or about the psychology behind it, the neuroscience and all that, like nearly everyone is really interested because they want to know more about themselves, right? I know a lot of Mexican friends who are like really into psychology, like those who are not like those who think spirituality is a bit woo-woo. They are all also very into psychology because they still want to discover more about who they are.
Yes.
Existentialism and all that kind of thing.
Yes, spirituality might be woo-woo, all that positive energy stuff and all that. But like falling back to things which actually mean something, like, okay, leave the woo-woo aside, You don't like the woo-woo, leave it aside. Let's talk about where you're at, and I guess that's fundamentally what we're all searching for, like what's real and how to transform this.
Because this
energy.
flow state that you mentioned, right, for me is like exactly the same as like the meditative state that like we practiced all the time. Like you clean your vibration out completely, like you reset and like you function from there.
Yeah,
so
and
it's exactly the same.
It's so fascinating because when I started doing this, don't want to age myself, that was about 9 years ago when I finished school. Even then we were seeing a lot of just incredible advances in the way that we were studying brains and being able to make the connection between the brain and real life behavior and what was taking place in the real world. But now it's just exponentially increased. Like the speed at which we're able to know things about the brain now is just insane compared to even 10 years ago. But with that being said, a lot of these, more ephemeral kind of, esoteric sort of areas like, spirituality, the woo-woo, all of that, we're actually able to speak to the science behind that now. That's what a lot of the flow research has gone into is understanding before it was like, oh, this guy, and I don't want to use this example too figuratively, but when people say it's like the mom picking up the car with the baby underneath it, it's like
suddenly she has the strength, right?
Yeah, and there are these, and like a lot of people would attribute that to God or some type of religion in the past, like, oh, God gave her the strength to do that. And maybe that is the case, but we can now go in and see when people are in these moments of distress, or when they're all of a sudden they're able to use all their mental capacities. We can understand why that's taking place, whereas before we couldn't. We'd be like just confused and be like, oh, let's attribute that to something outside of the realm of science. But now, when a jazz musician gets on stage and is in the pocket, as they call it, and is there for like an hour and is just playing the most heavenly music, we understand what's taking place in the brain now, which is pretty wild. So
all the serotonin and the dopamine and all that.
Yeah, and it's just like it's kicking. Like you can easily see the markers of a flow state, and it's what's funny is like it's before we thought it was just just reserved for artists or athletes, but like you can see the same markers in somebody that's on a ski slope as you can somebody that's giving a TED talk on stage and giving a speech, because they're like the subjective experience of a flow state, besides like feeling like you're in the zone, is a richness, a sensory experience. Like you notice a lot more information, like environmental information, than you would before. You're also able to like you lose your sense of self. Like you feel like you're in it like you are it rather than like you're experiencing it.
Yes, you are it, exactly.
Yeah.
Like the flow state will be like also like the Indian dude doing the burger on the street,
right.
very fast,
in his own,
in his flow,
in his flow, right?
Yeah, and one really positive side effect of achieving flow states and optimizing your life for flow states is an insane level of increased well-being. When people are doing things they really enjoy, and what's taking place, from a neurocognitive perspective, is they're getting addicted to it. There is a dark side of flow as well,
Sure.
but they're like you're addicted to your music. Like your brain is wired to surf the pathways of getting you more and more of the music,
being
or more and
addicted
more
to the flow state or being addicted to music is all right. So the only bad part is if you're not in it and you just feel like things sucks.
Yeah, and that's why usually when people artists, writers, things like that, when they hit a slump or they hit a wall in their work, it's because they're not as passionate about it as they once were. So it's about finding the flow again. Maybe it's just optimizing their environment, maybe it's needing to go hiking or camping for a weekend or something like this, but that's typically the case.
What is actually happening in the brain when the mom is actually lifting the car? I mean, of course, there's the initial, I need to get my baby out, and the whole adrenaline thing and everything. And what is actually happening to her? Like what gives her, or what gives a person in the flow state abilities they don't have in the normal?
Yeah, and that's essentially it. Is everything it's when your maxed capacities of your neurocognitive resources are available. They just become like that, and in this case, it's because of a significant threat is taking place.
Right.
But in these other cases where you're building this up over time, because you could build your flow abilities like a muscle. For example, the founder of the company that I'm with, Steven. So he writes and he skis, and that's all he does.
Okay.
He skis and he writes. So
what kind of writing? Like creative writing, poetry? What kind of writing?
He's pumping out a new book, every couple of months.
Yes, like what you mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, but also all kinds of like he does fiction, nonfiction, that kind of thing. It's his thing. Okay. But he also loves skiing, right? So skiing is his flow activity, which I highly recommend. If you don't have a flow activity, try to find one that lights you up, because the more he skis, the better he gets at riding.
Wow.
Which is insane to think about, but it's like if you go to the gym and you do curls with the dumbbells, you're going to increase your capacity to put load on your biceps. You can basically lift more, not just at the gym. You can go home and lift more weights at home.
That is beautiful. So this is a practical kind of method to actually just get better at being in the flow. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We just did a partnership with a company called On Running. If you're familiar, it's like kind of like Nike, but they're a little more sciencey focused.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So just did there was a great body of research that's gone into running and flow state. Which running, you think, it's just a thing that athletes do, or people that are just trying to de-stress, get some better mental health do.
Yeah.
But there's actually a lot of research to support that running increases creativity. And that's because running, it helps you, like you're getting the flow, you're utilizing your people that enjoy running, especially, you get into the habit of it, and you're challenging yourself. You have a challenge to skill ratio, which is a flow trigger.
Right.
So they're building flow capacities.
You're dropping, I got to pause you for a second. This man's dropping some bombs here this afternoon. We got to slow things down sometimes to to kind of really absorb this beautiful information that we're getting. Can you repeat that again? So okay, just repeat that point again that you just said.
So
You're
running,
gonna run, right?
Mhm.
Later.
yeah, running or physical activity, exercise, you know, juicing your system can
Mhm.
increase your ability to access flow or to become more creative.
Okay.
So the first thing that I would recommend if you're, you're a writer or a musician trying to get a song out and you've been stuck, first I would say, stop whatever you're doing, go outside, get access to sunlight, get access to nature, see a
Sunlight.
beautiful view,
Mm.
beautiful vistas, increase your ability to get into flow. But then also just do some exercise, use your body, become more in touch with your
present.
body.
More connected.
And this, you say, leads to increasing your flow ability. That's the word you used, right? Flow ability.
Yeah, flow. Like you get more access to flow, the more, you know. And I don't want to say you got to be a fitness nut, but it's like even going for a 30-minute walk down the street and coming back.
Makes a difference, right?
Yeah, it allows the mind-body connection to strengthen a bit more versus being hunched over a desk for 5 more hours. You know.
So like what we call it in spirituality will be kriya, because the kriya is like the mind body connection. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And-
yeah. So,
and,
like
with the-
I see it all like in like aligned with the spiritual process, like the practices that we do and stuff like that.
Yeah, about
The
being
science,
present.
The science
Yeah.
part is very
Yes, I mean,
interesting.
I'm not so familiar with the actual biological processes in the brain, you know, when these things happen. But like the yoga instructors, the yoga masters, when they talk about being present, these are the things they talk about. They talk about you getting more information that you usually would from in your current environment, and you being kind of free from your own projections about the things that you're doing, your expectations about what you're doing. And I guess like your friend who you mentioned skis and rides, I guess maybe that's what opens up his vistas of imagination, you know, right? Like and gives him
Yeah.
more kind of a different perspective to things. And with this, I have this point. I mean, like, you know, people who use substances like drugs or alcohol, or they abuse these things, sometimes, I mean, wouldn't you agree? I guess they're trying to look for a different perspective. Would you say? I mean, like, of course, there's the whole thing about being stuck and addicted to the chemical of it, but like the intention, you know, like when someone is addicted to something and then they're trying and they're in a loop,
Trying to get out.
they're trying to get out of the loop, and they're like, okay, it's my last day, I'm not going to do it again. The next day they're doing it again, and this whole loop, you know, it's a struggle, right? And I think it's a kind of like would you say it's kind of like their own personal struggle to find their flow state?
Yeah, and it's funny enough when you so what my first gig out of my psychology degree, once I graduated, I was working at a neuroscience clinic.
Right. So
We're
you are a psychologist as well, because you have a
Technically
psychology
not,
degree.
which there's kind of a path. So I didn't go for the full PhD. I ended up
Okay.
traveling the world, going to Burning Man, doing all this.
Well, in that
Right.
case, we
But
appreciate
you have
you
all the
not.
background of that, right?
Yeah, so I was
Yeah.
working in a clinic, was studying the effects of meditation and mindfulness on the
Okay.
brain of people that, like, we were doing, you know, brain scans, imaging, things like this, and trying to figure out how that affected, you know, people that had mental health disorders, everything from sleep problems to anxiety to addiction. And
It's too interesting. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
too
all these
interesting,
topics. Yeah.
well, yeah, the interesting thing about addiction is yeah, it is essentially your, you know, like when somebody shoots up heroin, their sensory perception goes through the roof. Like the richness of experience for them goes off the charts.
Right.
They are in, you know, a quote unquote sort of flow state when they do drugs or when they're addicted to drugs and they are able to get it.
Okay.
So one of the things, funny enough, in a lot of recovery programs that people, you know, recommend or that get people out of their addiction is to go find another passion, become ingrained in a hobby, which what they're saying is find a different flow trigger, a different flow state.
Flow trigger. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like, for example, you know, somebody that was addicted to something, they go out and maybe they start running. They that's their new thing, and that's their anti-drug. Your anti-drug is
Yeah,
your
I get it.
new flow pathway that you're going on there. But
Like people when they quit smoking, or like they can find something else to put their attention on, right? Like running or whatever.
yeah, and it's just having a deeper understanding of the brain of what's taking place, like that extra level, that just extra little notes. Like, okay, my brain is doing this.
Right.
What can I do to change the pathways of my brain? Oh, I'm just going to go do something else that feels good as well, and make that the new trigger So instead of like, when you want to go get your fix or whatever, you just do this instead.
Right.
So
like, can I bring the conversation a bit here to Mexico? Like, so you've been working as a peak performance specialist here. How's it been like working with the people here as compared to like in America? Or I don't know if you were doing that peak performance specialist work in America, but like,
Really?
how's it been like, working here and there?
yeah. So to kind of go back in the story a bit, it's like from graduating, I was like PhD, I'm going to go do the research thing and all of that. And then I started working with doctors and clinics, and a lot of the doctors I found were not business savvy. They were like not able to convey the message of the work that they were doing. So you get a lot of people caught in spreadsheets and computers all day, but not actually changing the world or having an impact. And yeah, from there, I was like, I kind of went on a spiritual journey. I was really into meditation and mindfulness. I was studying, different philosophies surrounding it. And yeah, so I took off. I basically, it was about a year of traveling. I started out with Burning Man, of course.
Yeah.
Met a whole bunch of lunatics there. That totally shifted.
You always go back to that. Like,
Yeah.
here's where I started.
Well, it was a moment because you meet people that are experiencing,
sure.
experiencing life in a number of different ways and choosing different paths than the norm. Right. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the precursor. I was like, okay, went from there, went to Bali, went to Thailand, did that whole thing.
Yeah, you went to a part of the world.
Yeah. Beautiful place. Singapore. Of
Shout out
course.
to beautiful Indonesia, Singapore, yes,
Southeast
Thailand.
Asia. Yeah.
Yeah. So did that. And then, got involved in business out there a bit. And I was, doing a number of different jobs here and there, but it was always involving behavior.
You've been around, basically. You've been around.
Yeah. I mean, it was a journey that got back to this, the stuff I'm doing today. Funny enough, and this is kind of like, for people that are listening to this now, and they're like, okay, well, how do I become more independent, or if they're looking at, maybe a location independent lifestyle, or that have came here and just want to, explore their own interest and career paths. It's like I went there and did that, had no idea what I was going to do, but just kept following my interests. Like I want to understand people, and people that led me to understanding sales, that understanding investing, understanding how businesses work. And then coming back to the States after the pandemic, skip a few chapters there, came back, and then I had friends that I went to school with, and they were like launching this idea, doing pretty successfully with, the research into flow and kicking it off. And then, that's when I got involved, to help
What
make
is the name of your company?
It's the Flow Research Collective.
The Flow Research Collective. Okay.
Yeah. And it was like, okay, the ability to, or the opportunity to create impact at scale. And I was like, wow, let's provide flow to the masses, to the world.
Yeah,
World changing kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. And then, it's been, of course, completely location independent, being able to work with clients in America. We work with clients literally around the world, Europe, Mexico. Funny enough, the Latin American markets for this type of these kinds of ideas and concepts is really high. Like they're very receptive to this sort of thought.
Right.
down
Yes.
here.
Yes.
That's something that we've kind of found as well. The receptivity of the people here, like to certain kind of
It's
topics.
like it's kind of different, like in because Singapore and America, I would say, is quite similar. like I would describe like this the center it's more mental, but like in over here
More mind-based,
it's
right?
more centered
More
like,
mind-
around the heart.
Yeah.
And like I feel that over here when we talk about topics that are like holistic, a lot of people already have information about it, but like back in Singapore or even in America, like they will attend to it in a more intellectual way, or like something that will benefit their work or what, but not so much about who they are.
Yeah, and I think it's like they're more emotional centered, like you said, like more heart centered, and that's the the beauty of the space that we're at in the science. It's like you're able to connect this all together. It's kind of it's a cool moment to be involved in that world.
But bro, your experience and the things that you've done and the areas that you've kind of explored, and kind of like the impression I'm getting is like this whole thing, and then you kind of just you kind of just let your experience kind of open up other areas, and this whole process. I mean, you have to be some kind of in a state of constant learning, right? And is that a daily thing for you? Like, what's your process like, or how do you get information? What feeds you? Like,
Yeah, and I would say, not to always bring it back to flow, but understanding, what drives you. For me, I'm really big on just understanding human behavior, one, but then also bringing people together, bringing
Community.
Organizations, groups, individuals of integrity together. People that are out there to impact the world. People that are, it doesn't have to necessarily be making a difference, but people that are switched on, as I like to say.
Right.
And bringing them together is really important for me. So in whatever, kind of like whether it was working in Asia and startup accelerators, or working, in the neuroscience community in LA, it was like, it's just like, okay, we have ideas, they have ideas. Let's all get in the same room and talk these out. And for me, that's what drives my own learning forward, is because it's just a natural instinct to surround myself with people that are smarter than me.
yes,
It's like, let's just hang out with the nerdiest people possible, and then
Right. And you're
you'll
pretty
develop
nerdy
and
as well,
grow.
right? Already, and you're already like like a really smart guy.
I mean, it's
PhD, blah blah.
you want to be the dumbest in the room is the goal. So it's like you just got to keep up in the ante.
Yeah, that's great though, because there's humility in that. Like, yeah,
and,
like I mean,
yeah.
as opposed to like wanting to be the smartest in the room and like
Yeah.
lord it over everyone.
Scary place to be. You want to be in the smartest in the room. That's and I think everybody's smart in their
Yeah.
own way, of course, as well.
Yeah.
And to be able to recognize that's a superpower in and of itself. Is like, just say like, well, this guy might be super nerdy in this regard, but super nerdy in the books or the science or whatever. But then this person is just emotionally advanced on a level that you could never dream to be.
That is such an interesting topic as well. Like in this day and age that we're living in, like like looking at the internet and the kind of the information that we have, there's like intelligence level versus intelligence/information level versus original creative creation, right? There is a huge imbalance in the world, right? I mean, like you can get a lot more information than, there are a lot more. Let's put it this way: there's more information than creativity, in the sense of like, okay, I don't want to dig my own grave here by choosing the wrong terms, but basically, more information than creativity, and it feels like there's like a disproportionate amount, and somehow with time passing, this is kind of leveling out, like the creative
Because of the
process of
internet,
each
or what do you
individual.
mean?
Yeah, the creative process of each individual person, is hasn't reached that level, that the amount of information that is out there,
Yeah,
You
and
get what I'm
it's
saying?
I
it's
see.
like a consumption versus creation sort of thing. And I find like more and more, and this is working with clients, I'm always like, consume less, create more. That's big
Yes.
thing,
That's
because we're
my
just
point.
consuming all day, every day. We're scrolling and
Yeah.
we're depleting our chemicals in the brain, and just getting cheap, quick hits all day, and that reduces your ability to be creative doing that.
And
So,
also, not
like-
just that, it's just naturally, like, since we have so much information, like a lot of information, right, out there, it's like, it just seems like a kind of a natural process for each and every single human being out there to start turning on their creative process, right? Like you have all this information, I want to paint my room gray, all right? So you Google gray and you realize there's more than 50 shades, it's like 5,000 different, things. And then, like, what are you trying to do? What kind of gray do you want to use? Like, why don't you read this dude's blog about the color gray?
Too much
there's
information.
too much information. But my point was, or the point I was making earlier, is that it just feels to me personally, there's so much information, and this creativity point, or this person trying to paint his room, it hasn't, of each of the 7 billion people living in our planet, it hasn't balanced out yet. And I think when that happens, it's going to be a crazy, beautiful, universal flow state explosion thing, right?
So like, Carey, like, because I don't think we have that much time left,
Oh, okay.
but I would really like to know, like, how do you like it here in Mexico? Do you like, anything interesting to note?
Well, yeah, it was actually as a concept or an idea that I was really excited to discuss with you guys, considering you're from the other side of the world and you're living the dream here. It's like this, like my I left the U.S. when I was 25. That was the first time I ever left the U.S. And then I stayed out for 6-7 years, still going for the most part. And it was like, you know, that digital nomad kind of, you know, that fantasy, which was great. You know, lived by the beach. I've done the beach thing, sand in the laptop, that whole thing, and had relative location and lifestyle freedom. But there's an argument to be made that you know, you can go wide or you can go deep, but you can't do both. And that's what I was feeling after years of just living in multiple countries, you know, traveling constantly. It was just like, this is great, but I want to develop community. I want to go deeper. You know, I want to know the guy's story that works at the gas station. You know, I want to like know about his family and stuff. And when I was traveling so much, I found that, you know, even though I was doing, you know, exciting work and having fun, it was just like I just felt like there was something that like
Was missing.
did that. I want to do what's the next thing after that? What's the next high? And that's like, oh, geeking out with the guy at the gas station, you know. So being here,
That's
funny
your
enough,
plan. That's your plan here.
it's exciting. I'm an old guy now. I'm getting there. So no, it's like for me, Mexico City is incredible because I was shopping around for several years to find a city that I really appreciated and really connected with. And yeah, Mexico City just checks all the right boxes.
I mean, it surprises you in that way, right? Like,
It's crazy. Yeah. Like as soon as I got here, I was like, okay, I'm not leaving for a while. I'm not even thinking about the next step. For years past, it was always, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go to Spain, and then I'm going to go to Thailand or whatever.
We were the same.
Yeah. So it's like getting here, I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to stay. I'm going to chill and really enjoy it and go deeper and deeper. And, you know, that's why I'm hanging out with you guys today.
You lived in some third world countries as well. Like you were in Thailand, you said?
Yeah. So third world, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam.
But those had like a very special kind of like ambience. They have their own like very cultural. They maintained it. It wasn't modern. I mean, they had modern, but they also had the, you know,
Strong
ancient
flavor of
stuff.
the past.
So yeah, with developing countries, as I like to call them, because we tend to think third world is like lesser, but in some ways, these countries are more advanced and leagues beyond our society. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So in Vietnam, for example, I mean, in all these countries, you learn patience because in our world, we're just used to everything being immediately happening.
Right. And more efficient. And
yeah, it's like, I want my Amazon yesterday, you know.
I want my internet fast.
Which you can, that's actually becoming a reality in some of those places, but it just teaches you patience and the ability to appreciate, not just to appreciate your own, you know, experiences in life, but just to appreciate the smaller things. Because there's like some of the happiest people in the world I've ever met were, you know, in the Vietnamese countryside, and they're like a fisherman or somebody just, you know, like a guy. Like I remember made friends with a barber in a rural town in Vietnam. This guy's a barber, my friend's uncle, and he's like the nicest guy in the world. He's also the happiest guy on the planet I've ever met.
Wow. A
barber in a small town in Vietnam, you know, and it's like, yeah, that's I think going to places like that, everybody has their journey, but I feel a life well lived involves you being, you know, like experiencing other cultures like that and just being able to compare. It's like, okay, how does this give meaning to my own experience? And I think you guys have experienced the same thing.
Right.
So,
and the happiness level here in Mexico is pretty high, right?
People are happy here. You know, you go to LA, it's full of rich folks. There's a lot of people with money there. Not a lot of happy people.
But not happy.
I mean, not back in LA, just it's a cool place, but it's different cultures, and they prioritize you know, mental well-being here, which I really enjoy. Yeah,
I mean, but at the same time, like they deal with bad things happening like very well. Yeah, they take it in their stride.
So quick piece of advice for the people, like would you say the world would change really quickly if everyone just prioritizes happiness and kind of your own state of peace and well-being?
Because the flow state is
right.
So I wouldn't say happiness. So happiness as a pursuit can lead to some not happy places, I would say, but prioritizing growth and challenge. So, you know, one of the precursors to flow is a challenge to skill ratio. This is why video games are so addicting, because video games are always just hard enough, but not too hard, right? They keep you wanting more and more and more. So to gamify your life and to continue to be happy or to reach, you know, higher states of well-being, it's about figuring out what's going to push you beyond your limits. It's not too difficult, but it's just hard enough to where you're getting into flow while doing it. It's
I
like, what
really-
is the progression of you?
I really like
Yeah.
that. It's like it's just
Challenging
you
path.
and you, like your what you intuitively find your next drive is, your next like flow trigger. That's how you call it, right? Is but like I mean, as compared to being competitive with others to improve and
Yeah.
or to grow, I find there's a lot of flaws in that.
Yeah,
And
and
we
that's
came from a country that is like that, so
very
yeah.
yeah.
Because even in the most competitive kind of situation, you're still just competing with yourself in a way, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to be the better version of yourself.
And everybody is you. I mean, that's what I feel.
Wow,
So,
beautiful conversation. And we're trying to sneak in as much time as possible with this man here.
Yeah, I feel like
Yes.
this we can talk about this for like a long time.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
there's so
yeah.
much to talk about. Maybe like, and then we can get lessons of the
Yes.
flow.
Yeah,
do
so
it.
for people who want to know more or like you know and they want to maybe get in touch with you like to get more information, how can they find you?
Yeah, hit me up. You can either hit me up
On
on
Instagram?
Instagram. Yeah, Carey James Official, or Flow Research Collective is the group that I work with. And yeah, highly recommend the work that that they're putting out, the research they're putting out, as well as Stephen Kotler, who is the godfather of flow that I work
Okay.
with. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Nice.
put both the handles on the Facebook video, which I've
Perfect.
already sent you. So
Great.
and then we can share that with everybody. Yeah, and what else do you have to say to the audience that's
I got a
watching?
quick question if I can sneak it in, like quick one,
Okay.
right? Okay, so would you say sometimes like certain kind of how would I say aggressive or intense situations can actually put someone in the flow? Like say you're stuck writing a book and you're like, you know, and you just want to get there, or you just want to get into that state. Yeah, you know, you mentioned taking a break and doing something else, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say if you're in the heat of a moment kind of situation
Mhm.
and you're looking for, just enhanced mental capacities,
Uh-huh.
in those moments, it's really there's breathing exercises you can do. Breath work is huge. There's
Breath
a
work, okay.
concept called box breathing,
okay,
which we teach this to people that are going out and trying to close, multi-million-dollar deals, and they're stressed and they're freaking out. Box breathing, look that up and
Okay.
just regulate your nervous system, because there are resources available to you at your fingertips that a lot of people don't understand are even there.
Mhm.
And you can upregulate, you can downregulate, whatever you need to do. Follow the breath. That's what you want to do.
Right. So
Thank
yeah,
you so much. With that, we're gonna end the show today. If you want more information, you know where to find it. Thank you. This has been TFS, that forum show on ADR Networks. I'm Isaac Rakesh.
I'm Celestine Angel, and we have Carey James
Yeah.
Good to meet you
Yeah,
guys.
round of
See you
applause,
next time.
Carey James. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
here on
Thank you.
TFS, activating your senses.
Senses. Yeah.
Thank you to all who joined us here on That Foreign Show. It's been awesome. I'm Celestine Angel.
And I'm Isaac Crouch, and we'll see you next Friday. Have a great weekend, y'all.
That foreign show. That foreign show.